Hello, welcome to lecture number 5, where we will talk about proposals and contracts. The first discussion to have is around the RFP, or request for proposal, process. Sometimes it's preceded by an RFI, or request for information. Sometimes it's preceded by a RFQ, request for quote, or the pricing attached to a particular project. The RFX process, though, is an attempt by the organization to put the specifics of a project in front of the consultant or series of consultants and have them bid on how they would approach the project, what they see as the appropriate approach to accomplish the result wanted, and the pricing involved in accomplishing that, as well as the timing. It's supposed to be a very objective process, but anytime you have humans involved, we have to be a little cynical. It is always going to be open, although not necessarily will it occur, but it is always open to the intervention of people either internally or on a consulting side who will want to skew the deal in their favor. So they can change the weighting of certain factors so that one organization has a clear advantage over another, or they can change the dynamics in such a way that they can limit who really could have potentially completed that project. So while the process appears to be one that is a good one, it should be approached with a certain amount of skepticism and just double check to make sure it's being done correctly. So that's what I have to say about the RFP or RFI, RFQ process. However, the idea of doing a proposal is an important one. The proposal states what will be done by the consulting organization, how it will be done, the costs, and all the factors that impact the project. What I would highly recommend, though, is that no proposal be written or accepted until all those details have already been discussed and determined. Otherwise, it's very difficult to compare one proposal to another because they all may have very different understandings of what's to be expected. Plus, there's the back and forth between, well, your proposal doesn't meet our needs because you didn't include this function, that factor, some other variable. So proposals really should be more a summation of what's already been discussed and agreed upon, and should not be seen as a selling document for the consultant. If a consultant is trying to sell their services to you through a proposal, they have not done the appropriate amount of due diligence to understand your situation and what it is you're trying to accomplish. So what should be included in a proposal? Well, as you might imagine, it would be who's on the consulting team and what's their background and experience. What are the specific objectives one is trying to achieve? How are we going to evaluate the success of this initiative? What are the metrics, the evaluative criteria that we're going to be applying? Is it time-based, or is it based on some other scoring? Number of people coached, number of offices reviewed and visited, or whatever else may be the factors that are important to this particular project. So it has to have those kinds of things, as well as the proposal has to include what are the fees associated with this particular project. Now, sometimes the fees will be reserved for the contract and don't appear in the proposal. That's a matter of personal taste and on how that particular client company wishes to proceed and how the consultant chooses to document the understandings and agreements. So that's the proposal side. As far as contracts, very big, bold lettered caveat. Do not engage with a consultant, do not initiate a project until there has been agreement on the contractual terms. Sometimes that's embedded in the proposal, sometimes it's a separate document. There have been far too many cases, though, where the contract was not signed, not agreed upon, and then either the consultant or the client had a different perspective on what in fact was the project, what it was that was being agreed to. And even in the best of intentions, sometimes people will misremember, have different interpretations, and it can lead to conflict. Sometimes, and the worst that I've seen, is that a consultant believes they've been given permission to move forward. The client does not agree unbeknownst to the client, the consultant starts to do work. When the consultant invoices for that work, of course, then there's the discussion of we didn't authorize that, you're not getting paid, and there's a level of upset that may have occurred because the consultant has begun a project that was never supposed to take place and could have done certain things in talking to others within the organization that could be harmful to that client organization and require further remediation. So therefore, the proposal and the contract are very important. Sometimes the discussion will be, can it be verbal? Can it be an email? Can it be simply a mailed document? My counsel would be, it's best to get it in writing. Verbal, while in many municipalities is legally binding, it's difficult to prove, and it's always better just to have it in documentation. In terms of does it have to be mailed or emailed, that's more of a local decision based on the legalities of where the contract is being drawn. You can't be wrong if it's on paper and it's mailed back and forth, whereas in certain areas of the world, the email does not count as a legal document because it can be changed and modified and is more difficult to prove.